If you're carrying a negative bias, you might avoid decisions not because they're unwise, but because the potential loss feels too heavy or too scary. Or you might make a hasty decision, like the stepmom we mentioned earlier who changed her children's schedules to avoid overlap with her stepson. She reacted out of her own pain without fully thinking through the downstream impact. And the outcome can sometimes be heartbreaking. She's unintentionally cut off opportunities for the family to connect. Now they're missing out on moments like that relaxed dinner that they had a few weeks earlier, and it feels like two separate families living under one roof. That isn't truly what she wants. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, hey there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. Hey, if you haven't left a rating or a review yet, would you do that for us? I know I ask that every single episode, but that is so important, not just for us to get your feedback, which is actually really motivating and helpful to us, but it also helps other people decide where they're going to reach out for help. And so if you could just hit that little 5-star rating wherever you happen to be listening, we would so appreciate it. And maybe even grab the link and share this episode with someone that you really care about, who you know could bring value to. We would so appreciate if you could help spread the word about what Blended Family Breakthrough can do for others.
Absolutely. You know, when we meet with blended couples, it's common for them to share some kind of pain with us. Disappointment after a family activity goes sideways, outrage over an ex-spouse's behavior, sadness when a child is struggling, frustration from conflict and disconnection in their relationship, or hurt, even anger, when a stepchild rejects them or shows disrespect. The journey of blending a family is filled with experiences like these and plenty more.
That's for sure. You know, we also hear about the wins sometimes. We recently had a couple tell us how victorious they felt after a successful family vacation.
That was their word,
That's
victorious.
Right. They were feeling hopeful about their family's future. But what makes that so powerful is that just a few months earlier, in the middle of their pain, they were feeling like they were on the verge of breaking up. This couple, like most blended couples, has wins along the way, but it's easy to get stuck focusing on the challenges, those negative moments that create painful emotions, hard interactions, and deep discouragement. Most of us can relate to the highs and lows of blending a family, but here's the truth. How you choose to navigate the lows will make a profound difference in where your blended family ends up.
Yeah. You know, what we've noticed in our own journey and with the blended couples we get to coach is how easily negative experiences can overshadow the positives. We heard from a stepmom who described her stepson as rude, harsh, and mean, so much so that she changed her own children's visitation schedules to keep the kids from overlapping as a means of protection. She went on and on about how their two sets of kids didn't have anything in common, how bad things were, and how it was never going to change. She felt stuck and hopeless in dynamics that felt out of her control. And to be clear, her pain and frustration were real and valid.
Yeah, they were real and valid, yet that wasn't the whole picture. Just a few weeks earlier, this same couple had reported a breakthrough. The whole family enjoyed a relaxed meal together, and everyone, including this stepchild that was really struggling, showed up with a pretty good attitude and actually stayed engaged. They even noticed a positive trend with all the kids kind of settling into the new family dynamic. So how did they go from hopeful to kind of hanging by a thread? Why was the tension suddenly so high that their relationship and their family felt like it was on the verge of imploding? Honey, what do you think happened?
Negativity bias. That's what happened. And honestly, none of us are immune to this.
That's right. We see it all the time. And because this tends to impact all of us, it's a really critical aspect of blending to be aware of and to find ways to overcome. Honey, let's start by sharing what negativity bias actually is.
Sure. Negativity bias is that built-in pull to notice the negative faster, feel it deeper, and replay it longer. A criticism can land like a punch, while 10 compliments are barely even felt. That's why a bad first impression sticks, why painful moments linger, and why one tense comment can hijack an otherwise great day. Here's how it tends to show up. We remember the hard stuff more clearly than the good stuff. We react stronger to a negative moment than an equally positive one. We replay and ruminate over what went wrong, even when most of the time, things went right.
Yeah. So you can experience a win and acknowledge a positive trend, and then hear an irritating remark, and suddenly that one remark becomes the headline when someone asks, how are things going?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And neuroscience backs this up. Our brains tend to do more work when something negative shows up. In studies that measured the brain's electrical activity, often through what's called event-related potentials, basically tracking how the brain responds in real time, what they found is that negative images consistently trigger a bigger response than positive or neutral ones. One study demonstrated this by showing participants positive, negative, and neutral pictures while monitoring brain activity. The negative images lit up the cerebral cortex more strongly than others. And that helps explain why bad moments can feel so loud. When negative information creates a surge in the brain's processing system, it tends to shape our attitudes and reactions more powerfully than good news, positive experiences, or encouraging feedback.
Yeah, that's wild. And relationship research points in the same direction. Doctors Howard Markman, Scott Stanley, and Susan Blumberg have spent decades studying what predicts distress and what protects a marriage. And one of their big takeaways is that negatives carry more weight than positives. It's not that good moments don't matter, but a few unhealthy patterns can quickly overpower a whole lot of goodwill. They also found that how couples handle negative moments early on matters a lot, because ongoing negative communication and poor conflict management are linked with the erosion of satisfaction over time.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, that is why their work puts so much emphasis on spotting and interrupting predictable danger patterns and negative interpretations before they start running the relationship. The bottom line is when negative information hits, it lights up the brain, and when negative patterns take over, they shape a relationship really fast. That's why learning to slow things down, lower the heat, and choose a healthier response is not just nice, it's actually protective for your relationship, and it's essential.
And it's not just our couple relationship that's impacted by a negativity bias, but every relationship in our home. And if we're co-parenting with an ex, it'll also impact the relationships between homes, creating greater levels of stress and mistrust. So now that we have a general description of what negativity bias is and a little insight around how this affects our brain's activity and impacts relationships, let's talk about specific areas where negativity bias might show up in a blended family and what we can do to counteract its influence.
Yeah. Let's come back to the profound effect negativity bias can have on relationships. This bias can train you to expect the worst, attach meaning to someone's behavior, and then start to question their motives. So you might start anticipating how your partner is going to react in a situation, and you walk into the conversation with your defenses already up. And when you do that, it doesn't take much for things to spiral into an argument, ending in another round of unresolved conflict and ongoing resentment. And then you're pointing out, see, there it is.
Yep.
Right? It can show up with kids too. Your stepchild shuts the door a little too hard or avoids eye contact, and your mind fills in the blanks. They're being disrespectful. They're doing this to push me away. And whether that assumption is true or not, it actually shapes how you respond, and it can quickly create more tension in the home.
A negativity bias can also shape how we perceive people. When we form impressions of someone, we tend to lock onto negative information more than positive, and we start building a story about them. Studies have shown that when people are given both good and bad adjectives to describe someone's character, the negative descriptors carry more weight in the impression that gets formed. Let me give you a practical example. Maybe your ex is dating someone new and you're starting to interact with that person a bit. A negativity bias can lead you to nitpick every small negative while brushing past anything positive. And honestly, they might be doing the same thing with you.
Sure.
Either way, that negative focus starts steering the relationship. It can quietly determine whether you become allies or enemies, meaning your relationship with your ex's new person will either reduce stress between homes or add to it, which is exactly what we talked about back in episode 231.
Yeah. So, what can we do to protect all our relationships from this negativity bias? Well, first, we can reframe the situation. How you talk to yourself about events, experiences, and people plays a huge role in what you notice and how you interpret what's happening. When you catch yourself defaulting to a negative interpretation or zooming in on what went wrong, you can pause and look for a more objective and balanced reframe. Now, you can do this by asking yourself a few questions, like, what else might be true here?
Or is there another explanation besides disrespect, rejection, or sabotage?
Often there is, isn't there? Yeah. How about, am I reacting to what's happened without really understanding the other person's motives?
Or what evidence do I have for my story, and what evidence do I have against it?
Ooh, that's good.
Reframing doesn't mean ignoring red flags or pretending that everything is fine. It means refusing to let one negative moment become the whole story. You're choosing to give fair weight to what is good, what is neutral, and what is improving, not just what is painful.
That's right. In blended families, this is especially important because we can attach motive and meaning so fast. A slammed door might mean disrespect, or it could be a tired kid having a hard day.
Yeah.
A short text from a spouse might mean irritation, or it might be stress and busyness. A photo posted on Facebook of your kids with your ex's new partner might be overstepping, or it might be completely innocent. When you reframe, you create space to respond with wisdom rather than reaction.
Yes. A simple practice that can help is to ask, what would a calm, secure version of me assume right now? That question can lower the heat and keep you grounded in reality, not worst case stories and catastrophizing.
That's right. That's right. You know, one of my favorite resources for kind of reframing and reshaping our thoughts that probably one of the best self-help books I've read over the last 10 years is Soundtracks by John Acuff. It's phenomenal. And there's multiple strategies. And how do we ask ourselves questions that tend to reframe what we see, because what we see is so driven by this negativity bias. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes, but I highly recommend everybody read this book, Soundtracks by John Acuff.
Such a good book. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So negativity bias can have a profound impact on our relationships, but negativity bias does not just shape our interpretations and feelings. It then also shapes the decisions that we make. In their well-known research, Nobel Prize-winning psychologists Dan Kahneman and Amos Tversky found that when people make decisions, losses tend to carry more psychological weight than gains. In other words, the risk of a negative outcome looms much larger in our minds than the potential benefit of an equally positive outcome.
Ooh, we need to wrap our heads around that one.
Yeah, let's spend a little time on that one.
And that tendency matters because it influences the choices we make and the risks we are willing to take. We often fear the downside more than we desire the upside, even when the two options are objectively equal. In other words, most people feel a stronger emotional hit from losing $20 than they feel joy from gaining $20.
Yeah, I know I can feel that for sure. Now, let's bring that into a blended family. If you're carrying a negative bias, you might avoid decisions not because they're unwise, but because the potential loss feels too heavy or too scary. Or you might make a hasty decision, like the stepmom we mentioned earlier who changed her children's schedules to avoid overlap with her stepson. She reacted out of her own pain without fully thinking through the downstream impact. And the outcome can sometimes be heartbreaking. She's unintentionally cut off opportunities for the family to connect. Now they're missing out on moments like that relaxed dinner that they had a few weeks earlier, and it feels like two separate families living under one roof. That isn't truly what she wants.
Oh.
Here are a few other examples of decisions made while carrying a negativity bias. You avoid addressing a boundary issue with your ex because you fear backlash, even though healthier boundaries would reduce tension in your home and create more peace for your kids.
Or you stop initiating connection with a stepchild because you expect a cold response. So you protect yourself by pulling back even though you really want to build more connection.
Here's another one. You hesitate to plan a family activity because you can already imagine the tension and the disappointment, even though you know that creating opportunities for bonding would be good and healthy.
Or maybe you delay a hard conversation with your spouse because you anticipate it turning into a fight, even though the conversation could bring clarity, relief, and unity.
Yeah, and the tricky part is this. When we're loss-focused, we can start making decisions that are designed to reduce discomfort in the short term, but they often create bigger problems in the long term. That's why learning to spot negativity bias is so important. It helps you to make choices based on what's true and what's wise, not just what feels safest in the moment.
Exactly. To counteract the negative influence of a negativity bias and make better decisions moving forward, we need to stop our negative self-talk. Start paying attention to the soundtrack in your head, especially after a tense moment. In blended families, it's easy to replay what happened and default to thoughts like, I shouldn't have said that. I blew it. They'll never respect me. Or, this is never going to get any better. That kind of self-talk does not just shape how you see yourself, but it also shapes how you interpret your spouse, your stepkids, and even the other home. And it will impact your decision-making process.
That's right. The better approach is to interrupt it early. When you notice those thoughts starting, pause and replace them with something a bit more grounded and more useful. That was a hard moment, not a hopeless situation. You see how that reshapes and reframes? You know, I think I can repair this. One interaction does not define our future. Here's another example. My stepchild's reaction is information, not a verdict on my worth.
Ooh, I love that one.
Yeah. Or we're learning. Blending is a process. It's a great one to hold on to that we can just kind of generally hold on to that. Instead of fixating on the mistakes you cannot undo and being paralyzed by fear, you have the capacity to shift to a mindset of growth, asking, what did I learn and what will I do differently next time?
In a blended family, that might mean adjusting your tone, choosing a better time to talk, getting aligned with your spouse first, or setting a clearer boundary with the other home. Now, the family we mentioned earlier, the one who reported that victorious vacation, did not let fear keep them home. They had been on vacations before that felt like a total disaster. But instead of giving up, they learned from what went wrong and made a thoughtful plan for how they would approach it differently this time. One of the biggest shifts was building an intentional rhythm of one-on-one bio time throughout the vacation so each set of kids could feel more secure, seen, and relaxed. They went from disaster to victory because they refused to let a negativity bias write the story for their family. That is how you stay empowered, not by pretending it was easy, but by using a hard experience to build wisdom for the next one.
Yeah, one of the most important traits we need as a blended family is courage. We have to be willing to press on when it's hard and to try new approaches even after we've experienced setbacks. We need to be brave enough to make wise, thoughtful decisions even when there are no guarantees. This is the journey of imperfect progress. Don't let a painful setback or a negativity bias keep you from making decisions that can lead to real growth and real momentum. You know, honey, at the time of this recording, it's the day after we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
Woohoo!
And man, if I back up 15 years and counted the negativity biases that I had toward you, toward our marriage, and toward our blended family, we wouldn't have been able to celebrate yesterday.
Yeah.
I would have not had the courage to actually continue to press on. In fact, one of the reasons that we sit here today and we get to speak to you who are listening is because we had the courage to reframe, to hold on to hope, and to start really looking for those little wins along the way so that we could experience the imperfect progress we were looking for.
Yeah, and having a growth mindset.
Absolutely.
I absolutely relate to what you said because I was carrying a lot of negativity as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just wanted to pause for a moment and share that because those of you who are listening, I want you to really think about that. What might you be missing out on 5, 10, 15 years from now if you choose not to push through your negativity bias today? Yeah. I really want to encourage you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've explored the profound effect negativity bias can have on our relationships and how we can counteract that by choosing to reframe the situation.
That's right. Examine your stories. Don't believe everything you think or feel, right? We also uncovered how a negativity bias can shape our decisions and how we can choose to stop negative self-talk and change that soundtrack and instead embrace a growth mindset, like you just said, honey. We can be courageous. Now, let's touch on one more negative impact of a negativity bias, and that is the toll it takes on your mental and emotional health, especially in a blended family where tension can be constant and emotions certainly run high.
Yes.
This kind of thing can lead you to dwell on dark thoughts. You replay the hard moments over and over, the rejection, the conflict with the other home, the fear that things will never get better. Like, why do we replay those things all the time and we don't replay the real fun things?
I don't know. I don't know.
For some reason, I don't really ruminate on the positive experiences nearly as much as I ruminate on the negative ones, right?
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah. What else, honey?
Well, it'll add strain on your relational satisfaction. You'll become quicker to assume the worst, more reactive with your spouse, more guarded with stepkids, or more suspicious of an ex. Even when you want more peace and connection, you can start showing up in ways that add to the tension and create disconnection in your family. This might feel depressing or even hopeless.
Absolutely. Another thing is you tend to lose your ability to feel hopeful. The wins get minimized, the progress gets dismissed, and one bad interaction starts to feel like proof that your family is failing. And all of that takes a toll on your mental and emotional health.
Yes. You might find yourself ruminating about the other home, reading meaning into every tone or text message, second-guessing your spouse's loyalties, or interpreting a stepchild's mood as personal rejection. The longer you live in that negative frame, the more exhausted and discouraged you feel, and the harder it becomes to see the progress that is actually happening.
Sure.
When you're stuck here, pain and overwhelm takes over, and then it becomes very difficult to respond with wisdom, patience, clarity, and steady leadership in your family. You
Absolutely.
just can't do it.
And to counteract the toll of a negativity bias on your mental and emotional health, you can practice the things that we've already talked about. Reframe the situation, stop that negative self-talk. But you know what? There's a couple of other things that can also be powerful in helping you to focus on the positive over the negative. Is that right, honey?
Absolutely. We've used this first strategy ourselves when we were navigating through some tough seasons, and it's something that we encourage our coaching clients to do when they're struggling with negativity. And that's to capture the good.
I love that.
Because our brains tend to store negative experiences more quickly and more deeply, we need to be more intentional about capturing the good and really savoring the positive moments that we do experience. In other words, the hard moments can stick on their own, but the happy moments usually need a little help to become lasting memories.
And that helps a lot in blended family life because progress is often really quiet, right? You've done such a great job in capturing the good, honey, with your scrapbooking. Like you're a pro scrapbooker and you have chronicled our entire 25 years of marriage and raising kids and all of that. And sitting down and looking at the scrapbooks actually forces us to capture the good.
Absolutely.
Because we rarely take pictures when people are screaming and throwing fits and doing that kind of thing, right? So there's evidence of all these good moments, right?
Yeah.
So you can capture the good as well. Sometimes,
even if it's quiet.
That's right. Sometimes it's pictures and all of that. Sometimes it's these tiny, quiet little moments. Like when a stepchild says thank you without being prompted. An exchange day goes smoothly. Your spouse backs you up in front of the kids. Everyone laughs at dinner. Nothing big happened, but something meaningful did. So when something good happens, slow down and capture it. Get out your mental highlighter so it doesn't get overlooked. Here's a couple of ideas on how we can do that. First, name it out loud. That was a real win today. Today's handoff was calm and relaxed. Or, I loved how you handled that tough parenting situation with your child. It helped me feel like we were a team. Verbally acknowledging the positives, even if they seem small, can be helpful because it reminds your brain that, hey, these moments count. And over time, they can add up quickly when you take the moment to just name it out loud.
That's right. Another thing you can do is take a mental snapshot. When something good happens, what did you see, hear, and feel in that moment? Give yourself a few minutes to really savor it, maybe even capture it in a journal. And if you have any actual snapshots, photos from a win like the family we mentioned earlier who had that victorious vacation, print them up and put them where you can see them.
That's right.
Let those positive moments become reminders of what's good and what is possible.
Yeah. Or maybe have something tangible that you can hold on to. When my stepdaughter Annika was really little, we were out, I think we were beachcombing or something, and she was so excited to hand me this little tiny rock that she found. And it was like a gift that she wanted to give to me. It was such a simple moment, but it actually really meant a lot to me in that season of our journey. And you know what? I carried that little tiny rock in my pocket for years as a reminder of our connection, along with my keys and my change and everything else that went in my pocket. There was that little rock from Annika. Hold on to little things like that. Hold on to little notes, artwork, anything that helps you remember and receive and believe the positive deposits. Those will equip you to stay focused on the good when negativity strikes. This is so powerful because those tangible positive reminders can help be the buffer to the hard, and they'll help you to stay open to seeing the whole picture rather than just this negative, narrow moment.
Yeah.
With the stepmom we mentioned earlier, who was so locked in on the negativity with her stepson, we encouraged her to reflect on that fun, relaxing family dinner and to find a way to keep that memory alive, front and center. Then, when she notices herself slipping into a negative story, she can quickly remind herself of the bigger reality and try to choose a more hopeful focus.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you can do is replay it on purpose.
That's right.
Run it back in your mind a few times and let your body register safety and connection. Write it down in a gratitude journal or retell your win to a friend and let them celebrate with you.
Yeah.
Allow the positive to take up more room in your head than the negative by choosing to replay the good over and over.
Or start scrapbooking.
Yeah, you could do that too.
That's right. And one final thing you can do as you're capturing the good is to be willing to receive the good.
Yes.
It's so easy to become focused on what is hard that you start to deflect the good things. A stepchild shows a small sign of warmth and you immediately think, oh, this won't last, right? Your spouse offers encouragement and you brush it off with, oh, you're just saying that. A peaceful weekend happens and your mind immediately looks for the next problem. That's negativity bias at work, and it quietly keeps you from being nourished by the good that is already present. And trust me, I'm just sharing this because I've lived it.
We've all been there.
For sure. And receiving the good is about choosing to let positive moments land, allowing yourself to fully experience the joy of today and releasing the regret of yesterday or the fear of tomorrow. We've got to learn to be present in the good.
Yeah. Capturing the good is not pretending there are no problems. It's training your mind to recognize progress, build hope, and remember that your family is more than its hardest moment. Honey, you said there were 2 things that can help reduce negativity so that your mental and emotional health don't suffer. The first one we just talked about, capture the good. What's the second one?
Yeah, thanks. The second one is to cultivate belief, okay? You've got to tap into your inner Ted Lasso. One of the most powerful things that you can cultivate in a blended family is belief. Not wishful thinking, but a steady confidence and real hope that progress is possible. Because negativity bias constantly whispers at you, this is how it's always going to be. Belief pushes back with, well, it's hard right now, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay this way. When you cultivate and nurture a strong sense of belief in your home, it creates some meaningful ripple effects. One, you'll stay engaged instead of shutting down. You keep showing up with a good attitude even after a setback because you trust that the story is still being written. This can inspire family members to do the same.
You'll also respond with more patience and self-control. When you believe growth is possible, you are less reactive because you're not treating every hard moment like it's a final verdict. Your sense of calm rubs off on those around you.
And you'll notice progress faster. You start spotting the small wins, the softening, the smoother transitions, the sweet moments of connection that a negativity bias would normally rob you of. You can then acknowledge what you notice and voice your appreciation, which often motivates continued progress.
Yeah. You'll also create emotional safety. Our children are attuned to our emotions, and they quickly pick up on the positive energy when we're feeling hopeful. Belief lowers the overall tension and relieves pressure in the home, making it easier for everyone to relax.
That's right. And you'll make better decisions. Fear-based choices shrink your world. Belief opens up new possibilities and helps you choose what is wise, even when you might feel a little uncertain.
That reminds me of a couple we coached several years ago. They each had sons who were close in age. I think they were right around 10. But these two boys did not like each other much at all. They were polar opposites. One was outgoing and boisterous, a rough and tumble kid who loved sports. The other child was a quiet, studious introvert who preferred reading books. Family time was a struggle for them, and it usually did not end well.
Yeah.
But what mattered most was how this couple truly believed things could improve over time. So they got to work and they intentionally applied the strategies we gave them. They clarified their family values and put them into practice in a way that helped everyone in the home to focus on kindness and respect without forcing the boys to love or even like each other. This couple stayed hopeful. They did not let negativity pull them into giving up, and they kept showing up with consistency.
That's right. We recently got an update from them, actually, and they were thrilled to let us know that their two boys are now genuine buddies. Over time, they discovered a shared interest, some bike riding. Now they love heading out on adventures together. They actually enjoy each other's company, and they've learned how to be kind and respectful even in the midst of their differences.
Yes. What I love about that story is that this couple did not allow the pain of their kids' discomfort or their own discomfort to cloud their decisions. Instead of rushing in to rescue their boys from every hard moment, they helped them to manage discomfort and guided them towards some really valuable life lessons.
Exactly. Because someday in their future, guess what? Those boys and your kids as well are going to have to encounter people who rub them the wrong way. Someone who's different than them or makes them feel uncomfortable. It could be a classmate or a teacher, a roommate, a colleague, or even a boss. And if they've never learned how to manage discomfort and actually persist through it, they could miss out on amazing opportunities and meaningful relationships.
That's one of the surprising gifts of blended family life. It can be an incredible training ground to teach your kids values, life skills, and character traits they will need to succeed in life.
Yeah, but unfortunately, negativity bias can keep parents stuck in protection mode. We jump in to rescue our child from their discomfort without believing that they can figure it out, grow, and actually be okay, maybe even better than okay.
Exactly. If this couple had reacted out of negativity and moved into protection mode by separating their two boys, they never would have discovered the friendship and the bond that developed with a little time, a little guidance, and a lot of consistency. Magic Johnson once said, "All kids need is a little help, a little hope, and somebody who believes in them."
I love that. And you know what? This is important. Belief does not deny reality. It strengthens you to face reality with courage and helps your kids to do the same. It helps you keep trying, keep learning, keep adjusting, and keep choosing imperfect progress. In a blended family, belief is not naive. It's a leadership decision. It's you saying, we're going to keep moving forward and we're going to build something better one wise step at a time.
So here's your takeaway for pushing back on negativity bias. First, increase your awareness of how your brain tends to hyper-focus on negative thoughts and interpretations, and in the process, it filters out what's good and positive. Research shows we can expect the negative to carry more weight than the positive, and that is why we have to be intentional about counteracting it. We need to prepare our hearts and minds to push back, because if we don't, Negativity bias can have a profound impact on our relationships, derail our decision-making, and affect our emotional and mental health.
That's right. So here's our encouragement as we wrap up today. Practice one simple shift. When you notice yourself ruminating on the negative or assuming the worst, pause and choose to reframe the situation. Ask yourself, what else could be true? Or when you find yourself engaging in negative self-talk, stop and interrupt it. Choose to replace it with something more positive, comforting, and grounding. Something like, well, that was a hard moment, but not a hopeless situation.
Then look for one win, one sign of progress, one moment of connection, and really allow yourself to receive it. Let it land, savor it, capture it, because those moments are not just fluff. They are fuel. They build resilience, they keep you rooted in reality, not fear, and they help you lead your home with steadiness.
That's right. Be intentional about cultivating belief. Belief in yourself, in your partner, and in your children. There's an old saying worth remembering. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And you can apply that mindset to everyone in your blended family by nurturing a strong sense of belief in your home.
Here's the bottom line. When you are able to catch a negativity bias early, you give yourself the chance to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. You'll protect your relationships, making better decisions, and promote mental and emotional wellness. You'll get to experience more joy, contentment, and hope along the way, and your confidence will grow.
Mm-hmm. So if you're realizing, man, I think we need some help with all of this, the good news is you don't have to figure it out alone. That's exactly why we created the Blending Together community. It's a place where blended couples get real support and coaching, practical tools and strategies to keep moving forward with more clarity and more consistency.
Yes.
This is a group of fellow travelers who choose to stay positive and steadfast even as they navigate all the ups and the downs of blending.
And you can find the link in the show notes to join the community, along with links to past episodes that might be helpful. As always, you don't want to miss next week's Simple Step episode, where Mike will be exploring another aspect of negativity, outlaw words, and how they often derail our communication.
That's right. And you're going to want to make sure to follow the show either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen in order to make sure you don't miss that Simple Step bonus episode. Hey, we hope that you spend a whole lot of time this week curbing that negativity bias and really cultivating belief and focusing on what's positive. And I'll see you next week in that simple step. But for now, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.